We have a lot of laughs through the process. And by going through the process, it brings up lots of stories as well. Just our experiences growing up and what we've shared. Every now and then Sheila will catch me sitting down looking at photographs, and she goes, no, that's not a good use of your time right now. So she'll bring me back to reality also. But it's definitely helped our relationship.
Welcome to Spark Joy, the podcast dedicated to celebrating the KonMari method and the transformative power of surrounding yourself with joy and letting go of all the rest. With your hosts and certified KonMari consultants, Kristen Ivy and Karen Sochi. And now, here's the show.
Today, we have two special guests and a KonMari first. We have Siblings, a brother-sister duo that tidied their way to joy. Kevin is a gaming inventor and Spark Joy podcast fan from Connecticut, and his sister Sheila is a certified KonMari consultant with Moreganize in Vancouver. She helps people find more happiness in their life by organizing their homes and workplaces. Welcome to Spark Joy, Sheila and Kevin.
Thank you.
Hi, Karen. Hi, Kristen. Thank you.
We'll start with Sheila. Tell us about your KonMari journey. What led you to taking an interest in becoming a tidying professional?
Well, I kind of think about it as starting many years ago when I moved from California to Singapore. I had to pack up my whole house and fit it all in a 20-foot container. And a friend of mine said to me, who had moved internationally, only take it if you love it or you need it. And that's, she said, strongly recommended not to do storage, saying that I'd forget what I had and that my style would change. And I didn't really think I had a style to worry about. But at any rate, I took her advice. And I've had that kind of reduced living ever since. And I really liked it. So I kind of connected with the simplicity of the KonMari approach. And in 2016, I had taken a hiatus from the corporate world. And I read Marie Kondo's book, The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up. And simultaneously, she had introduced her consultant courses. And I enrolled in the second course and finished up my training in December of 2016.
Sheila, that is a beautiful story. And Kevin, can you tell me a little bit about your journey when it comes to getting introduced to KonMari? Was it your sister that kind of sparked you to start to focus on tidying?
Sure. I guess what sparked me was my dresser that was right by my bed that I would have to look at day in and day out. It just got, the top of it just got more and more crowded and it was a mess. And I didn't know where to begin to clean it up. And I had thought back on, a number of years ago, even actually before Sheila took her class with Marie Kondo, her course, we had an aunt had passed away and Sheila flew east. I'm here in the Connecticut area. Sheila flew east and helped me clear out my aunt's apartment and get that thing all organized. And I was so impressed and thankful that Sheila helped, that's what planted the seed. And then as I was facing all my mess in my own home and hearing that Sheila was taking some sort of course, I said, well, tell me a little bit more about it, Sheila. Well, maybe you can help me. And Sheila was game for it, although my dear wife, Mary, was like, well, wait a minute here. Wait, not so fast. And as we talked about it subsequently, Mary said, hey, it's just not easy having somebody come into your house, whether it's an in-law or maybe particularly an in-law, but Sheila and Mary get along fine. But it was more just an embarrassment factor because we've been in our home for 30 years. Clutter has happened. We raised 2 kids. And then finally, for my birthday about a year ago, Mary said, all right, your sister Sheila can come and help us start to get some control of this clutter. So that's where it all started for me.
Since you are both a little bit of a distance from each other, how did you make the distance between Vancouver and Connecticut work out as far as doing a tidying festival together?
Well, I can say Sheila has a absolute passion for this. For me, it was easy. All I had to do was pick up the phone and say, Sheila, you want to fly from Vancouver to Connecticut? And she would say, absolutely. So Sheila, you can take over. But it amazed me. What was just, I call the clutter my kryptonite. It just paralyzed me. And what I couldn't do anything with it, but Sheila seems to live for this type of thing. So Sheila, why were you willing to go so far?
Well, I like to travel. That's one thing. And I actually always kind of envisioned my KonMari consulting service as one that included trips to other locations. So it was fit in right with my vision of what I'd be doing to travel to declutter. And it's a chance for me to spend time with Kev. I mean, we are from a large family, 7 kids in New York, and we had a bit of a diaspora, and we are all spread out in a couple of different countries, in fact. And so Kevin and I haven't lived near each other for a very, very, very long time. So I did a calculation, and we've spent 20 days decluttering, and I think it's more time together in the last 9 months than it had been in the previous 40 years.
Probably so.
Probably so.
Kevin, tell us a little bit about the details of your home. A little bit about like how many bedrooms, what the square footage is, just some general idea of what the project looked like.
Sure. Yeah. So our home it's approximately 2,500 square feet, and we've got 4 bedrooms. Technically, I guess you'd say 4 bedrooms. One of the bedrooms is the master bedroom, and that's downstairs, and it's a decent sized room, has a bathroom with it. So that's where my wife and I are. And then upstairs, there's 3 small bedrooms. And the downstairs is just sort of an open pattern. So the kitchen and the living room, the dining room area is big, open, kind of a Connecticut cottage look to it. So that's the layout. And we found that probably one of the worst rooms in the house was the one that you could never see, and that was the garage, because anything that was just taking up space and clutter, I would just keep throwing in the garage to try to keep that open area clean. But it's a Connecticut cottage, and through the techniques that Sheila brought to it, we cleaned it up real nicely, and now that it's a serene Connecticut cottage.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, garages tend to be one of those spaces that accumulate what we call delayed decisions. And that basically means that if you don't know what else to do with it, you just put it in a place like the garage, because then you can put off having to decide what to do with it until it becomes overwhelming.
Right.
Well, Kevin, tell us a little bit about the space, about your home and what the project was like. What were some of the goals and the vision, as we know, is such an important thing in KonMari, that you had for your home? What was kind of behind your thinking of the ideal life that you wanted to lead once Sheila came and helped you?
Yeah, and it's funny. I don't think we even took, I know I wasn't taking that much of a strategic look at it. For me, it was, every single day in my room and in the closet in our bedroom, there's just so much clutter. And my initial goal was just to clear that out and help that space work for me, because that's where we spend so much of our time. If there were to be a vision, and that came subsequent, would be, I find that clutter just stresses me out. So if I can get rid of the clutter wherever it may be and lighten up my stress load, then that's what, my goal was. So we started with the bedroom, and I guess I thought maybe that was all it was going to be. And then when my wife Mary and I saw how much it changed us and how freeing it felt to have the bedroom fixed, then my wife said, well, maybe Sheila could come back and help me with her, with Mary's office. And then from that, it went to the garage and then to our kitchen. So we just kept adding on to it as we went along. And I think the vision actually came out of that rather than having it in the beginning. We just we saw so much more benefit than we ever could have imagined in the beginning.
Earlier, Sheila had mentioned that she had kind of acquired an interest in a more minimal lifestyle as part of her journey. Was there a part or a time that you were concerned that she would want you to just get rid of a whole lot more things and you felt comfortable doing? How did you work that out as far as your different perspectives on how much clutter, how many things you needed to have around you in your home?
Yeah, no, I think that I was totally open for that. And Sheila may have a different perspective on it, but I felt like I was totally open for it and was willing to part with a lot of things quite easily. I think for Mary, it was a little bit harder at first. And then I think as she watched me get rid of things and say goodbye to them, that it became easier for her. So I think Sheila and I were kind of in sync in the sense that I like a clutter-free environment as well. So again, I think it was helpful for Mary to see that happen. And then she got there. She found her way there as well.
I remember when I tidied with my brother and my sister-in-law when I first started practicing KonMari, and that was all in preparation for my certification. With family members, it's a little hard to remain objective sometimes. Did you find that challenging?
Well, I can probably speak to this a little bit because I kind of had the same experience, Kristen. I took my training and I was staying at one of my sister's houses in San Francisco. And I kept telling her how she had to use me and that I had to, have at her stuff. And she didn't have a readiness or an interest. I later helped her with a pretty good sized project. But it was through that experience and through gaining experience with other clients that I really embraced the power of the neutral, that clients really need to come to me. I got very clear on my business vision that I can help clients with the knowledge and the ability to get something done. They have to have reached a point where they have a need for a change and desire for the change. Once those things are there, I kick in. So when I work with a client, they get a combination of gentle and powerful. And it's such an interesting, nuanced process, the KonMari process. Using neutral language makes people not feel judged, and making sure that they know that they're making the decisions based on what sparks joy for them. They get that message again and again when I'm working with them. Kevin and I were talking about the fact that sometimes when we were doing the process, he'd ask me my opinion. And when I'm in KonMari mode, I don't give an opinion. I simply will ask a question to help the person reflect. And I said, well, do you want an answer from your sister or from your consultant? And he would choose.
Well, I would choose. I said, no, I need my sister now. I need somebody. And Sheila goes, well, as your sister, I'd get rid of it. But I go, okay, good. That's all I needed to know. And then we jump back into consultant mode.
I love it. That's a great compromise. And speaking of your process, were there other moments where you felt like maybe this would never end? Or Kevin, did you ever feel like giving up at any point in time?
It's funny. I felt just the opposite. Every time Sheila came in, again, she's been here 4 times, and each time it's been about 4 days where we've tackled a different project. And I am totally, there's a lot of work. And I think the biggest shock was the first day when everything came out of our closet and was sitting on our bed. And I said, oh, what did we get into? I think that was the only time I felt it. But once I saw the process and how it worked, then I was totally on board and have embraced and asked for and requested Sheila's time and attention to keep this moving along. So no, it was just that initial moment.
Well, now that you are on the other side, at least of the bulk of the work, do you feel that your perspective or that this idea of living your best life is carried over to other aspects of your life besides just the amount of things that you have in your home? For example, has it impacted your work life at all, or your other relationships, your friendships in the world, or your finances, or your health, the way that you manage your health these days? Have you noticed that other things in your life have changed for the better?
Well, yes, it's funny. I do, because I have listened to your podcast a number of times, and I really like how the philosophy starts to go over into many aspects of one's life. And I've been conscious of that. And I think a couple things. One, I tend to be a bit of a minimalist, and I like a low stress environment. So I think generally I'm there to begin with. However, by having less clutter around, I just feel I'm more efficient with my time. I'm not caught up in either looking for things and getting frustrated because I can't find them because of the clutter. So I feel that just my overall use of time has improved because of that. And the other way it's helped me is purchases. I'm now much more conscious about what comes into the house than I was before. So I have the philosophy, I believe in the philosophy, and I really look at things and say, all right, is this something that really will, spark joy, or what you want to call it, in me? Is it something that I really desire, or is it maybe not, or hold off for a little bit because maybe it's not that important? So I've found that there's much less time on Amazon these days because I look at things a little bit more critically as to where they would fit in our life.
The question, does it spark joy, is a simple one, but not so easy to execute alone. Extend your tidying experience by joining the Spark Joy Club, our online community filled with our clients, fellow listeners, and KonMari enthusiasts ready to support your journey.
If you find yourself buried under clothing, stuck on storage, or pointing fingers at untidy housemates or family members, we want to help you finish your tidying journey once and for all.
Support the show at the Joy Riser level and receive access to our exclusive virtual community, as well as the Tidy Home Joy Journal, your #1 tidying companion.
Visit sparkjoypodcast.com and click on Join the Club to get started. And now back to the show.
Wow. So it's had a big impact definitely on your life holistically here. How has it impacted your relationship with your sister?
I think it's brought us closer. Sheila said, we hadn't, there'd be probably every few months we'd have a short phone call, but we've had a lot of time together, and when she's here, when she does a good job, which she always does, she gets rewarded with a nice dinner, right, Sheila?
Yes, I do. It's very nice.
So we get to go, Mary, Sheila, and I go out for a real nice dinner, and we have a lot of laughs through the process. And by going through the process, it brings up lots of stories as well. Just our experiences growing up and what we've shared. Every now and then, Sheila will catch me sitting down looking at photographs, and she goes, "No, that's not a good use of your time right now." So she'll bring me back to reality also. But it's definitely helped our relationship.
And I'd like to point out that Kevin did not give me a noogie one time while we did this.
That's true.
Yeah, there's a lot of guilt in that laugh.
Yeah. I did do that many times, didn't I, Sheila? Yeah.
Once or twice.
Well, I have to say that I have not tidied with a family member, and I cannot even imagine it when I think about the family members in my life who probably could use a good consultant. I know that I would not be the right person for them in particular, although, I certainly can see in some relationships that it would be really just kind of perfect, especially as you're just getting started as a consultant. Sheila, would you say that working with your brother in that kind of intensive manner has impacted your work with clients? And how would you say it's influenced how you manage a session with the clients that you have now?
Yeah, I think it's helped a lot because, well, first of all, it's been a big project. This is a home they've been in for 30 years, and we did it extremely thoroughly. Because I'm working with my brother and my sister-in-law, I could sometimes ask them to tell me what they were feeling in a way that I wouldn't ask a client. How did you feel when I did X, or how did you feel when I did Y? And they were very open. They were quick to share their preferences and what their reactions were. Mostly it helped me understand how powerful it is not to use neutral language. That, when my sister-in-law told me she was nervous about being judged, and then to come back and say, "Oh, it was so different. I didn't feel that at all." And that's absolutely what I was trying to achieve. So maybe if it was a client, somebody who I didn't have this full life relationship with, they might not have shared with me what they had been thinking in the background. So I got a little bit of an inside look into at least one client couple's thinking, and I think it helped me in terms of sensitivity with other clients. It just reinforces the power of coming in as an outsider with great neutrality.
I love it. I love this brother-sister tidy. I'm such a fan. And I'd also would love to know what your favorite tidying tip is, Sheila.
I like to remind people that 70% is full. So I like to point out that, if they're filling up a bookshelf or a drawer, that if they shoot for 70%, that they're always going to have room to move things around, to access what's in there and to put things away. So if, some items come into the house, that it's no stress and they don't have to come up with a new solution. So in fact, it's often my client's favorite tip that, 70% is full.
Love it. Nothing like a little bit of empty space. And Kevin, as a dedicated Spark Joy listener, we'd love for you to share your favorite tidying tip, either one you've heard on the show or one you've heard from your sister.
Perhaps it's the most basic one. And it took at least a few trips from Sheila before I really started to get it. But, if I looked at my closet in the beginning, I'd say, okay, what do I want to get rid of? Because that's just either the way it's been taught or just as the most natural. What do I want to get rid of? And Sheila taught me, no. Everything comes out and we do it the reverse. We say, what goes back? What do you want to keep? What sparks joy? And that took a long time for me really to own that. So now I get there much shorter now. So when these issues come up, I don't look at things as, okay, what do I want to get rid of? But is this something I really want to hold on to? So I think that's something that's helped me as I've moved forward.
Oh, and Kev, can I add the sparkly tip that we came up with that one morning when you were wrestling with your coffee maker?
Oh, my goodness. we had gotten a new coffee maker in the kitchen, and it's been 10 years, 15 years we had the other one. So finally we break down, we get a new coffee maker, but then we find out that this thing's bigger than the other one, and it's kind of tight underneath the cabinet. So it's frustrating because now when you want to make coffee, you got to drag the thing out, and it's one more thing. We were complicating our life rather than making it easier. So I had said something in passing to Sheila about it, and then the next morning Sheila wakes up and says, "I figured it out." And I said, "You figured what out, Sheila?" She goes, "I figured out how we're going to fix the coffee maker situation. I didn't know that was even to be figured out." She said, "Felt tips. We're going to put little felt coasters on the bottom of the shoe, so now you don't have to drag it across the countertop. It'll just slide easily." And I happen to have some of those felt tips. We pop them on, and that solved the problem. So not only is Sheila doing this during the day when she's awake, she's also doing it in the middle of the night. That was a fun little tip to learn, that even little things like that, there are ways to make things work better for you.
That's one of the great things about being an organizer, is that you develop kind of a toolkit of solutions for little problems like that. And so that doesn't surprise me at all that she was able to come up with something so unique and so perfect for your little dilemma. Sheila, what is sparking the most joy for you these days?
I would have to say gardening. So I've just about to plant my veggie garden. I have a little plot at a community garden, and I'm sort of new to it, and I'm still in shock that radishes actually grow after I put the seeds in there. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
Oh, I love that. I'm a huge gardening fan myself. I haven't been able to do it for a long time, but I definitely miss it. So I share your enthusiasm for that. Kevin, what about you? What is sparking the most joy for you these days?
I recently, as you had mentioned, I'm a game inventor. So we came up with a new game that had been on the drawing board. My son actually came up with the idea about 3 years ago. And between my son and my business partner, we've been working on it and working on it and working on it over the last 3 years, and finally turned the corner and introduced it at Toy Fair in New York City. And people loved it. And we're going to be bringing that to market soon. So we're excited about that.
Well, congratulations on that. That's huge. And before we close out today, we want to make sure that our listeners can find both of you. So, Sheila, if you could tell us a way they can keep in touch.
Sure. You can find my website at moreganize.ca. That's Moreganize, as they say in Canada, .ca. Or Facebook, it's Moreganize123. I'd love to hear from anybody who wants a little organizing support.
Lovely. And we'll make sure to link that in the show notes. And Kevin, do you have any parting words of wisdom for our listeners who may be struggling a bit to complete their tidying event, or maybe on the fence in terms of investing in a KonMari consultant to help them dig out and choose joy?
Yeah, it's funny. Everybody quotes the Nike saying, which is just do it. I would change it just slightly, and I would say just try it because there's a lot of hesitation for a lot of reasons. I clearly get why people would not want to do it. And I'd say just give it a try. And I just believe so much in the system. So I particularly like that. But I'd say just give it a try, because I think it will pay off benefits that I can't articulate, that they'll discover on their own. And if those benefits do come through, then they're going to say, yep, I need more of this. And then they'll continue along on the journey. So just try it.
And finally, we understand that you have a sibling special exclusively for our Spark Joy listeners. Can you tell us a little something about that?
Yes, we aptly named it the 1010. So Kevin's flagship game is called 10Z. It's a great, fun, fast dice game. And I worked with Kevin this morning, and we decided that we would offer a 10-10 special so that you get 10% off of a Moreganize session and a game of 10Z to go with that.
Oh, that sounds great. We will definitely put in the show notes the link for getting a hold of the 10-10 special. It sounds really perfect. Thank you so much.
I'd love to hear from Spark Joy listeners on that one.
Thank you so much, Sheila and Kevin. This was so special for you to share your bond and your experience and all the tidying you guys have been doing together. Congratulations, Kevin, on your tidy home, and Sheila on your business, Moreganize.
Well, thank you very much. We certainly enjoyed it. And Sheila, I look forward to your next trip back here to help me in my office. Right, Sheila?
Yeah. Yeah. To finish you up, Kev. Looking forward to it.
The tidying continues.
Yeah.
So now we want to hear from you. Tell us your burning tidying questions or share stories about how KonMari has impacted your life.
Head over to Apple Podcasts to subscribe and review the show, which helps us reach others along their tidying journeys.
To extend your tidying experience, you can join the Spark Joy Club.
Visit sparkjoypodcast.com and click Join the Club to become a member of the Spark Joy community, or join us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
Thanks for tuning in, and we hope your day sparks joy.
Thank you for listening to Spark Joy with your hosts Kristen Ivy of For the Love of Tidy in Chicago and Karen Sochi of The Serene Home in New York City. Spark Joy, the podcast, is not endorsed by or affiliated with KonMari Media, Inc. The opinions expressed on this episode represent the views of the co-hosts and guests alone and do not represent the corporate position of KonMari Media, Inc. or the KonMari Consultant community.